The Gentleman came out recently on Netflix. It's in the same universe as the movie The Gentleman by Guy Ritchie, and the show was also written by Guy Ritchie. It's got his type of dialogue that's pretty unique to him, and the humor. It's really funny. The characters are all really good. It's a super entertaining show. I would definitely recommend it. And the crux of the story really is people inheriting things who aren't necessarily qualified to, and they just kind of keep making mistakes. So the gist of the show is that Eddie Horniman is the second son of his family who's had this huge estate for hundreds of years. And the first son is supposed to inherit it, Freddie, but instead Eddie gets it because Freddie is such a screw up. He's a drug addict. You see all this throughout the whole show. And Eddie finds out once he takes over the property that his dad was getting millions of dollars a year from these drug dealers by letting them grow their weed on his property. Because the idea with these inheritances in Britain, they had these huge areas of land. The one that he inherits is 15,000 acres, and they can't really do anything with it because of all the government bureaucracy stuff. So his father let these drug dealers grow their stuff there in secret. He gets a cut, no problem. Eddie finds out that he inherited this deal because it was his father's and now it's his. And he's dealing with Susie Glass. Susie Glass is working for her father, who grew the business in the first place to make it this huge industry in Britain. They say that they own about half of the weed distribution and sales in England. So these two are trying to kind of reconcile. Eddie's trying to get out of the industry because he doesn't want to deal with it. And the kind of theme through the whole show is that stupid people around him, because you're dealing in drugs, keep screwing things up. So he keeps having to deal with stuff, but he also reluctantly agrees to it. And he kind of seems to enjoy this lifestyle, even though he won't admit it throughout the whole show. So the whole show, he keeps trying to say he wants to get out of it, but he also doesn't behave that way. And there's also a pretty obvious theme that the show deals with of having screwed up family members around you, screwed up friends. Obviously, they're in a very illegal industry. They're selling weed, and they're familiar with other drug dealers who peddle things like meth and opiates and all that kind of stuff. So obviously, you're dealing with a lot of shady people, a lot of stupid people. And the primary one for Eddie is his brother, Freddie. Freddie keeps screwing up, and Eddie keeps having to fix his screw-ups because it's his brother. And that's kind of a big thing throughout the show. Susie has her own screw-ups that work under her for a long time. Obviously, her father she deals with. Her father is in prison, but he's essentially living like a luxury lifestyle, getting super fancy steaks made for him, and he's still kind of running the whole business. It's not really jail. It's like Pablo Escobar jail, if you're familiar with his story, where he had to live in a mansion and was under house arrest, but was still doing all the same shit. He just had to stay in the mansion. This one isn't a mansion, but it's a very fancy lifestyle that he's living when he's supposed to be in prison. So I'm just going to talk about the first episode. There'll be spoilers for that one, and that way you can kind of get the tone of the show. I'm not going to go through the whole season, but Theo James, who plays Eddie, does a really good job, because I kind of hinted at it in my description, but he behaves in a way that it seems like he likes this lifestyle. And I wouldn't say he has like a full Walter White arc, but there's definitely a tone to it where he's saying one thing and doing another repeatedly. Susie is played by Kaya Scodelario. She's been in a bunch of stuff. She's really good in this. And they do a good job of making her be kind of a hard ass, but she's not going around just beating people up and bossing everybody around and being annoying. She's just a really good character. One of the characters who wants to buy Eddie's property is Giancarlo Esposito. You might know him better as Gus Fring. And they interact quite a bit throughout the show because Eddie waffles on selling the estate and just being done with the whole thing throughout the whole season. And obviously, Gus Fring is a drug dealer who sells other drugs. He's not selling weed. So he's in it quite a bit. Obviously, he's always good with that type of gangster character. Ray Winston doesn't get much screen time, but he's solid. Everybody's really good at it. It's a really fun show. And if you like Guy Ritchie's style, I think it's really funny. When Freddie gets passed over for the inheritance and has this big meltdown, I cracked up. And there's a lot of really funny cuts and edits and stuff. I don't want to say too much. There's a part where Eddie's like, look, we have to do this so we can get out of this industry and stop dealing with these people. And Freddie's like, so let me get this straight. We have to become criminals to stop being criminals. And when the camera cuts back, Eddie has a ski mask on. And he's like, no, Freddie, that's why we're doing this, is to stop being criminals. Just like that kind of dry humor and like the clever edits and stuff. It's a really good show and it's really well done. For episode 1, we start out in Syria, where we see that Eddie is a military guy. He gets called home because his dad is not doing well. His dad passes. He gets the inheritance over his older brother, Freddie. And the meltdown that Freddie has when he doesn't get the estate is hilarious. I really chopped that up, obviously, because of copyright stuff. but it's hilarious. The whole show's really good. Anyway, so moving on, Eddie finds out that Freddie owes a gang $8 million from doing drugs and making bets and just being a degenerate. Sorry, 8 million pounds. So Eddie starts trying to figure out how to pay this off so that Freddie doesn't get hurt, obviously, for the money he owes. And he's like, oh, maybe we can sell some stuff because the house has a lot of paintings and art and whatever. But he's trying to get cash quickly because they're charging him some crazy gang interest rate on a weekly basis, obviously. So Eddie goes for a walk, and this is where he meets Susie Glass, and she explains what the deal is with the estate and what kind of business is actually taking place on the property that he inherited. If you've seen the movie is really good also. This is just like the movie where they have these kind of shipping containers under random parts of the property, and this is where they grow all their stuff. And she explains how they own half the weed industry in England and how much they make a year, and it's all astronomical amounts of money. So Eddie goes and talks to the guy who kind of just takes care of the land and the animals, and he's explaining that he's not sure he wants to deal with this status quo of the business. So he's kind of trying to figure out how he can get out of it now that he's the Duke. This guy shows up on behalf of Gus Fring. He's trying to at least set up a meeting to possibly buy the property very quickly. And Eddie is kind of torn about what to do because it's a family thing and they don't want to get rid of it, but he also needs the money for his stupid brother. He doesn't really want to deal with this weed business either. Susie goes and talks to the guy who owns the debt that Freddie owes, and it's $8 million, but $4 million is interest. So she talks him off the $4 million interest if she gives him $1 million worth of weed, because she's trying to help the Duke out so they can kind of continue their business as usual, like they were with his father. Here's where we meet Gus Fring, and they talk, and all the dialogue and stuff in the show is really interesting. It's not just stale, typical dialogue, because Guy Ritchie's obviously really good at dialogue and making it unique and clever and fun to listen to. But eventually, he does turn down the offer for now, at least. He says he'll consider it. But he needs to come up with 4 million pounds in cash, so he is able to sell some fancy douchebag wine that he has in the cellar for a couple million pounds that he needed to get to the 4 million. So at this point, he's close to the 4 million. That's the actual debt. And then Susie got the interest knocked off. Freddie is an idiot and constantly causing trouble. So he goes to like these underground boxing matches and he bets money on the match to try to get back the money that he owes from his debt. Typical gambler spiral. So Eddie goes to this guy because he finds out that this guy is not putting down the money that he said he was on Freddie's behalf. So he's just taking it and the fights are fixed. So Freddie was never getting that money back to begin with, but Eddie's too much of a blue blood royal aristocrat to really do anything about it. And this is something that obviously changes slowly as the show goes on. He has a really good character arc for Eddie. Eddie asks Susie to have her men help him get his money back because it was stolen. And obviously they rough the guy up and Eddie's like kind of taken aback by the reality of the situation. And this guy wants to apologize to Eddie for disrespecting him and all that. So you can kind of see he's getting sucked into this world without fully understanding how dangerous it really is. Freddie's out here skeet shooting, and this is going to become important in a few minutes here, obviously. Pretty clear foreshadowing of what's coming. Because part of what Freddie owes, besides the money, is that he has to wear a chicken outfit and sing a song and let the gangster guy record him on video and humiliate him, essentially. So Eddie explains the deal to Freddie, and Freddie's annoyed by it. But Eddie's like, you owed him $8 million. I'm paying $4 million, and we got $4 million knocked off. You're doing the fucking dance. So Freddie's having a tough time. The gangster guy just keeps yelling at him, being like, get into the part. Be more of a chicken. You're a fucking chicken. And he's jumping around, and he's going bark, bark, and pecking the floor. And it just goes on and on and on. It's one of those things that like starts off as kind of funny, and then it just gets kind of hard to watch. Freddie snaps and blows his head off. And now Eddie's gotten sucked into this situation completely. His brother just committed a murder who he has to protect. And one of the mob guys' subordinates is here counting the cash. So now Eddie's fully in this problem. And that's where the first episode ends. So yeah, hopefully this quick synopsis of episode 1 gave you an idea of what the show's like. I really liked it. If you've seen the show, let me know what you think. And if you haven't and you end up watching it, also let me know. I'll try to respond to anybody who doesn't just call me an idiot. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.